Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to Scrapbooking 101 with Art and Creative Studio. Sarah here, and today I'm really excited to talk about one of my favorite parts of scrapbooking, which is patterned paper. So today we'll talk about patterned papers, how to choose them, and how to use them. Now, there are so many different patterned papers available, and I've pulled out just a few so that we can look at the various types of designs you'll find from all over designs like this stripe to border patterns. And sometimes the border will be down at the bottom, maybe up at the top or along the sides. You'll find pattern papers that have corner treatments, and this gives you lots of nice open space in the center for photos and journaling. Those elements can, of course, overlap onto those corner accents as well. Then we have what we call faux texture pattern paper. So it looks like it actually has a textured design to it, but it's flat and smooth printed right onto that paper. Collage pattern papers are really popular as well, and this will give you a variety of different patterns, the text, the dots, and the florals in this case, and they all kind of blend one into another. We also have universal patterns like plaid stripes or floral designs, and these can be used for just about any theme. Now, some pattern papers will be high contrast. For example, this design here has lots of colorful flowers and botanicals, which is in sharp contrast to the white of the background. Other sheets will be a low contrast or perhaps tone on tone design. So this one has some very subtle brown florals printed onto that brown background. So that gives you a nice subtle effect. And of course, there are pattern papers that are designed to a specific theme. For example, this pattern paper here that I've used for my Christmas page. Now, we've been looking at 12 by 12 pattern papers, but don't forget, papers for scrapbooking also come in other sizes like 8 by 8 or 6 by 8, and often in paper pads, which are coordinated by theme or color or style, like this one here. And these are really nice because you have a coordinating assortment of different designs. And all of these are just tabbed right into the collection. So you can simply pull these out sheet by sheet. You will have this strip up here at the top, and you can just run this through your paper trimmer or even cut with scissors to remove this tab. The rest of the pattern paper will be a full 12-inch by 12-inch design. So with all of these possibilities, how to choose the perfect pattern paper for your photo? Well, you can choose to match your pattern papers to your photo by theme, of course. So for example, like an event such as Christmas, or you could go with a more general theme, like choosing floral paper for your gardening photos. Then you can also opt to coordinate by color, either matching or contrasting the paper to the colors in the photo. So for this layout, for example, I've used pattern paper to coordinate with the sepia tones in these heritage photos. And I've got my all over print here in the background. This sheet underneath is one of those faux texture designs. So I'm keeping everything within the same tones of my photograph. Now this is maybe a little bit easier because I've got just the sepia tones to work with. So what happens if you have something that is more colorful or includes lots of different colors? Well, with this photo, for example, I've got the pink of the shirt, but I've also got lots of colors with the butterfly face painting here. So I could choose this faux texture design and place my photo here, and that will pick up the colors in the background of her shirt here. I could also do something a little bit more high contrast with the teal. I've got an all over print here. I could choose this, or I could also choose the faux texture design. I could also go with the theme of this photo, so the butterfly face painting, and choose a design that has an all over pattern with some butterfly images on it. Now, when I place my photo on here, I think you can see we've got a lot going on. It's kind of a competition between the colors and the patterns in the photo and the colors and the patterns in my background paper. So one trick that will really help is to mat your photo onto a solid piece of cardstock, or again, some of that faux texture pattern paper. So you can see immediately I've got a bit of visual space between my photo and my background paper. And this just really gives your eye a place to rest almost. You can think of it like framing a photo or framing a picture before hanging it on your wall, especially if you have wallpaper. Now, if you want to create even more of a visual difference, you could double mat your photo. So perhaps you want to put it onto 2 layers of cardstock. So I've got the white cardstock and I have that faux texture. Now, here's where you can really play with your colors. So there will be a difference between the green and the yellow. And if I choose another contrasting color, like the teal. So again, lots of different options here, just depending on how I want to coordinate between the colors in the photo and the colors in my background paper. And you can also, of course, keep going with those mats and even bring in a third photo mat. And you can vary the widths of your mat too. So you can have a narrow mat, just trimming slightly around the outside edge, or a wider mat, or a variety of those. And your matte colors, I like to use some classics like white, black, off-white, or a cocoa brown. That also really works nicely. But don't forget, you can also incorporate solid colors in other shades. So blue, red, pink, whatever colors will match with your papers and with your photos. Totally up to you. So how else can you use your pattern papers? I'm going to bring back in this layout here and we can take a look. I've used 2 pattern papers for this design. So I've got my background and I've got this portion that's in the center. So this is my kind of faux texture design. And I've got this beautiful collage pattern paper. So I'm combining the 2 of them like so. And again, I'm incorporating a mat to go in between those 2 patterns. And this is a great way of mixing and matching your pattern papers so that you can combine more than one and use a mixture of different designs. But using a solid cardstock mat will really help to create a bit of visual difference between those 2 pattern papers and of course between your photos and your pattern papers. And when it comes to combining your pattern papers, there are a couple of classic design techniques to keep in mind. I usually start with a main pattern and then a supporting design that's maybe a little bit more subtle, or perhaps the print is a bit smaller. In this case, I like to cut down a square of pattern paper on a 12 by 12 or 8 by 8 page to create a square within a square. And again, I've simply trimmed this down and positioned it in the center with a mat going around the outside edge. You can also create borders. So for example, with this beautiful all over floral print, I could take a border, again, with a mat, place it in the center, or the border could go down at the bottom, or it could go along the side. So again, combining those 2 different designs. Now you can cut your pattern papers. You can also tear them. And when you tear your pattern papers, you'll generally find that you'll be able to get that white core that's inside the pattern paper, depending on how you tear it, in which direction you tear it. So you'll have a side that has the white core showing, and you'll have a side that does not. But you can adhere those together. You could even leave that center in the middle showing, or again, have your border going at the bottom, have it going along the side, or along the top. Really just depends on the rest of the elements in your layout. Now again, you can also utilize those faux texture pattern papers as your mat and simply combine them this way as well. Now another kind of classic design principle to keep in mind when you're mixing and matching your pattern papers, and this is a design principle that works well in home decorating and fashion as well, is to mix and match your geometrics with florals. So in this case, a floral design with a plaid or a stripe or a dot. These will go together really nicely. Another design principle to keep in mind is mixing and matching a large pattern with a smaller one. And here I'm keeping things tone on tone, but you can see how beautifully those will coordinate together. And of course, as you experiment with all of the different pattern papers out there, you will also discover the designs and the styles that appeal to you. And this is also part of the fun of scrapbooking, is just seeing what really appeals to you and what your own personal style is. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will catch you later for even more Scrapbooking 101 tips and ideas.